Welcome back here at Interpack TV from Düsseldorf, the hotspot for the packaging process industry in these days, right? Thank you very much for joining us once again, and I am very delighted to welcome Mr. Craig Stobie from Domino. Hello, Craig.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
Hi. Craig, you're one of the 2D experts from Domino, right? And we want to talk about these 2D codes. But let me introduce you what is your experience concerning the 2D codes? You just told me, we can say that's not a very new technique, right?
No, absolutely. And it's interesting to hear it being referenced today as sort of a new opportunity and a new technology. And of course, it's not. It's well established.
Okay.
You know, we've seen it deployed very successfully across a number of industries. So the thing that's new is really the application and the sectors that we're seeing it in, and really seeing it start to scale. And with that comes the opportunity to unlock a much wider range of benefits. So yeah,
Okay.
really exciting times.
Okay. So let's get the big picture. What is the change exactly, and why is it happening now?
So yeah, it's interesting because if you think about machine-readable codes, barcodes, we've been using barcodes for over 50 years. So 1974, the first Wrigley's chewing gum was scanned with a barcode. And it's been fairly static since then. You know, we have a linear barcode, fantastic. We have human-readable, with often the variable information on there. And it's been like that for 50 years. Nothing's really changed. What's accelerating this move is actually a number of factors. We have the circular economy. So actually the move to sustainability. I brought an example here.
Yeah.
For example, labelless water in South Korea. Well, if we remove the labels, which is a fantastic sustainability initiative, how do we identify the product? Well, of course, the ability of having a QR code.
Of course, yeah.
So the sustainability factors, which is helping us move from this sort of take, make, throw away to a remove, as in the case of South Korea, or reduce, and certainly it's enabling refilling, recycling, all of these other initiatives. We've also got the digital economy, consumer engagement, all of these great opportunities to much broaden with connected packaging. Suddenly your packaging is the mechanism for marketing, and actually all of the information can be online digitally. It frees up lots of packaging real estate. And of course we've got operational efficiency. We're seeing new legislation coming through, often driven by sustainability, you know,
Yeah.
things like the new wine legislation. And of course we've got one that's a really hot topic, which is GS1 code, so QR Piper GS1, which we're seeing a lot in retailers. So again, this move of retailers to adopt the code, unlocking these huge amount of benefits. And it's accelerating, because actually all of these things are interconnected. We're seeing retailers saying, well, we quite like the code. And if you're a food manufacturer, actually there might be a number of reasons why you deploy it. It might be sustainability and legislation and the pull from the retailer. So it's really starting to accelerate.
Okay, so can really name the benefits, right? They're really hard facts.
They're absolute multipliers, yeah. And you know, if you look at some of the benefits, and what's really interesting for me is it's across the entire supply chain. So there isn't one group of stakeholders who benefits. Everybody benefits. The manufacturer, suddenly it helps with their supply chain. It helps with logistics efficiencies, with warehouse management. If you look at the retailer, suddenly now waste management, things like dynamic pricing. You know, we've already seen examples of 2D codes, you know, QR Pi by GS1, reducing food waste by more than 40%. That's enormous benefits that we can unlock. So that's for the retailer, and also, of course, for the planet. And then, of course, we've got consumers. So if you look at things like ingredient information, allergen information, you know, recipe information, all of these fantastic things that would normally require to go and search in different areas, suddenly now is available immediately. You know, for people, especially who are vision impaired, suddenly this QR code opens up a whole world of information that might not be available otherwise, or more difficult to obtain. So, and then, of course, post-consumer, it helps with recycling. So actually, all of those different stakeholder groups are all benefiting just from this one change.
Okay, so we're talking about the whole value chain, right?
Absolutely.
Because I just wanted to know what every stakeholder gets as a benefit, but when I understand you right, it's just every stakeholder has a benefit.
Absolutely, and if you look at those benefits, it's all about the data elements you put in.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we say often to, when people are looking at these sorts of deployments, this isn't a packaging change, and it's not a production challenge. It's not something that's going to happen in engineering. This is a fundamental business change, and it'll impact all of the bits of the business. And what we say is, for companies, don't focus on the what. I want to print a 2D code or a QR code powered by GS1. And don't think about the how. Oh, what does it mean for my lines? Actually, it's about starting with the why. Why are you doing it? Who's it for? What benefits are you looking to unlock? And then work back, because the why will tell you what data elements need to be there, what bits of information, both on the pack and also then online. And then that will help you work back to the actual implementation piece.
But how exactly can Domino help, or is Domino helping manufacturers prepare for this transition?
Very, very good question, because of course one of the things that's interesting, again, back to that focusing on the why, it's about the outcome. So actually where Domino is really helping manufacturers and retailers is actually thinking about the broader outcome. And if you look at, for example, this example, or this is a retail code, this is the latest retail code that we're seeing with all of those key data elements in it. It's really about understanding the whole ecosystem. So it's not just about the printer, although we are a printer and vision and data management company. It's also about the materials, because we're seeing changes in materials. So our customers going from multi-layer plastic to mono-layer plastics. How does that impact this new initiative? And of course, it's about things like vision and point of sale success rate. So the retailer's not really interested in the QR code if it doesn't scan. So how do you ensure that it goes beep every time at the checkout and it's got all of the data elements you need in there?
Okay. But what are, in your opinion, what are the biggest challenges companies currently face when implementing sustainable coding and labeling solutions? So what are the biggest challenges?
I think one of the things is that, again, they look at it as a project. They look at it as a short-term engineering, perhaps, or a manufacturing challenge. And actually, one of the things that we often use as a very simple measure of how successful a project will be is the range of job titles that you see in the meeting. So if we go into a meeting where they're looking to roll this out, and there is an engineering manager, or possibly a production manager, we know this is going to be a challenging project. If we've also got logistics and packaging and legal and IT and warehouse management, who, by the way, don't talk to each other. They all have their own acronyms. They all talk their own language. We've had meetings where the first thing we do is get people from the company to introduce themselves to each other. And then we know we're going
to change numbers, right?
Exactly. And let's have some common terminology. And, things, when you move to this new ecosystem, the person who drives a forklift, is that a logistic person or a manufacturing person? Because now it matters, in terms of handover of data and handover of material. So for me, the key measure of success is about starting early and trialing it and failing fast. There's nothing wrong with getting it wrong, but fail fast and do it early to really unlock those benefits early.
Okay. So that would be my first question. The next question, why is early planning so important, right? We're looking at the year 2027.
Well, if I look at most production lines, and again, we did a simple Gantt chart, it can take 5 to 7 years for a change in packaging to flush through a big manufacturer. Okay. So a big brand might take 5 to 7 years. And of course, the thing is that QR codes powered by GS1 aren't immediately going to replace anything that's on the pack already. It will be in addition to. So where do you put a code that's maybe 22 millimeters square with a quiet zone around it? So again, there's some thought that needs to be done. And of course, if you look at that 5 to 7 year period to flush that through, you wanted to be ready for 2027. You should have started in 2021. So customers potentially already 5 years too late. The other thing that often happens is when they pilot this, they pilot it with the best lines, with the best people, because that gives them the best chance of success. It also means it's the least chance of learning. So we often say, although it's counterintuitive, start with your worst line, because 80% of your lines will take 20% of the time. So you might be able to do 80% of your lines in 2 years, but 20% of your lines will take 80% of the time. That's where you need to start. Start with the hard lessons, because that's where you will learn quickest, and you can adopt those onto the easier lines.
Okay, okay. I think a buzzword of the Interpack 2026, I think, like always, is efficiency, right? Production efficiency. And but I want to know, how do Domino's integrated coding and labeling system contribute to that, contribute to greater production efficiency? Could you point that out, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the things that we're doing now is things like 100% machine inspection. And when we say machine inspection, one of the things we ask ourselves is what does success look like? So if we're looking at, for example, this retail code, success isn't production yields within the factory walls. And it's also not ISO grades, which is the normal measure of barcode quality. It's important, but it's not success. Success is, will it scan at the checkout? So we've done a huge amount of work with material suppliers. We've done a huge amount of work with the people who make the checkout scanners.
So in a real production environment?
Exactly, to say, what's important to you? Is it better if the code is big or small, light or dark? So making sure that when people are manufacturing within their factory, that we know that 100% of those products will go out the factory door and they will scan 100% of the time at the retailer. And that's ultimately what it's about. So you've got to think about that outcome and work back.
I understand, I see. But let's talk once again about the Interpack here. Which innovations or live demonstration can visitors expect to see at your booth?
There's a couple of really good ones that are really outstanding. Again, we've taken a solutions approach.
Okay.
Because again, it's more than just about the printer. It's much more about the outcome. So two really good examples are the sleeving solution, which I've shown here, which is a live demonstration of exactly what's happening now for retailers. We're deploying this in hundreds of lines over the coming months, where people who supply to retailers are saying, we need this code on pack. We've got retailers who are saying, we want most of our short shelf perishables to be QR ready by the end of this year. So that's one area, and on that we've thought about the handling, which is really important. We've thought about the printing, we've thought about the inks and the material science, we've thought about the vision capability. So we know that we've got uncoded products going in, and we've got acceptable point of sale ready, data ready products coming out. So again, it's about that outcome. And the other one that's definitely worth coming to see is the closure coding system, where we are taking plain closures and we are hitting them with a white ink, and then we're coding them with QR codes, and then we're checking them. And we can do that up to 120,000 closures an hour. So faster than any production line that's currently out there. And it allows us to do mass serialization. So suddenly water isn't just every bottle of water is the same because it's a static G-tin, or even down to 10,000, because we're now adding variable data for batch and expiry. We're able to do batch of one, so we're able to demonstrate 120,000 unique codes on closures. So suddenly that bottle of water is unique. And again, the concept's not new. We did this. I was one of the architects for the Falsified Medicines Directive in Europe. We designed that code 2002. Today, 16 billion products a year are happening. Every single transactions are happening, protecting patients. It's been happening for the last 8 years, not in a big, overt way. It just quietly gets on with it, and that's what will happen with this code, and particularly these two examples where we're saying, no, this is ready to go. We're already using these in the field.
Talking about the solution shown at your booth, what are the reactions from the visitors?
Very, very, really, really positive, because they are, it's not about us, it's not about the printer, it's solving customer problems. So customers are coming to us saying, we need to move to this 2D code, we do bottles of water, and actually rather than saying, we have a printer that can print on a bottle of water, we're saying, this is your product, and this is what it would look like afterwards. So it's allowing customers to make it more accessible. It's reducing the sort of the challenge of how do I get there? Because we're saying it's easy. Here's the path, and all you need to do is just follow this path, and it will get you there.
Okay. Now let's take a look, one last look, 5 years ahead. Let's say 5 years ahead. What role do you think do smart coding technologies and centralized system network play in the factoring of the future, right? Talk about factoring future, and which role do you think, let's say, 2032?
I think what will happen is we will find a much more interconnected ecosystem. You know, we're seeing the link already between the physical world, what happens in the factory, and what happens with the packaging, and this whole digital universe. So actually, packaging now is the conduit between those two, physical world and the digital world.
The bridge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the way that you access it. So suddenly the packaging becomes intelligent. That, you know, the packaging is now smart. It's performing something other than just, you know, showing and protecting the product. I think going forward, we'll see much more collaboration between those different stakeholders within the production environment. Again, and data suppliers. So we're already working with people like Amazon with their transparency project based on GS1 syntax. So all of a sudden it's interoperable and it makes it interconnected. So we're allowed to really unlock those benefits for factories. Going forward, I think it's really going to power a much better outcome for things like waste reduction and efficiency. So I think we'll see a lot more late-stage customization, much smaller batch runs, much more supply chain agility, all powered by this one code.
Okay, so more sustainable, more AI-driven, more data-driven,
yeah,
right, in this case, but also maybe easier for the manufacturers?
Yeah, absolutely, because the one thing that's interesting is serialization. We found with deployment, when the first few lines, actually efficiency can drop because they're learning and it suddenly becomes a new thing. What it does is it improves things like operating procedures. It improves line efficiency. It improves understanding of the relationship of material science. So actually, the materials that they're buying become more consistent. So actually, we find after this short dip, with only the first few pilots, actually the lines become more efficient because all of a sudden everything works a lot better. It's just more controlled. So I think, yeah, absolutely, we're going to see these real benefits for manufacturers. So there is a huge amount of opportunity. The key is starting early.
So I think we could say, like a resume, the solutions are ready.
Absolutely. We've been doing it for 25 years. The solutions are very ready.
Correct, and that's a full circle moment from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
We return back to the past.
It's nothing new. It's nothing particularly challenging. All you've got to do is approach it in the right way with the right partners and with the right broad outlook.
Thank you very much for joining us, Greg.
Thank you very much. It was brilliant. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. And I guess everybody's welcome at your booth.
Yeah, they are. We're in Hall 8, C54. So, yeah, please do come along. It'd be great to see people and we can show them the two solutions and lots of others that I haven't talked about.
Of course. So, thank you very much, Greg, once again.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. We will be right back from Interpack TV. Interpack 2026, live from Düsseldorf. Thank you very much and goodbye.